Hi, it's me, Creative Katie, Karen Burchill. Welcome to my channel, Mixed Media Creations. If you wish to follow me on all my social media, do a search for Creative Katie in Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, WordPress, and Pinterest. You're sure to find me. If you wish to support my channel, you can shop through my Amazon influencer links or make a direct donation through my PayPal link. Both links can be found in the description box below. Thank you so much for your support. If you're not already a subscriber, don't forget to hit the subscribe button in the lower right-hand corner. Then click on the bell and select the option to be notified as soon as I upload a new video. Today we have a mixed media tutorial. Today's piece I've entitled Fantasy in Flight. Did you know that I'm a brand ambassador for the Crafters Workshop? Today I am working on a 9x12 cradled wood panel, and I absolutely love working on these, and I highly recommend, if you're going from art journal to canvases, to go to the cradled wood panel because you have a solid surface and it makes it so much easier. Now I'm going to use this stencil, and it's called Winged Mosaic, and it's TCW 656 by Gabrielle Polacco. It is an absolutely lovely piece of artwork in of itself. So I thought I'm going to start with some black gesso. This is the Crafters Workshop black gesso, and I'm just covering this board. Now I've already put a coat of gesso on it and sanded it, but I chose to use gesso because it's very opaque. Now I'm taping down the stencil before I do apply the modeling paste. And the reason for this is it allows me to have all my hands free to focus on putting on the modeling paste. So I'm going to apply the modeling paste this time with a key card, and I'm pretty much covering the entire stencil. Now rarely do I do the entire stencil. You've seen me doing, and I've got a little bit of texture in one place or in a little bit in another place. But the nature of this stencil, I have to cover the whole thing. So I'm applying it very carefully and just pulling it through. And even though I'm covering the whole one here, with the Crafters Workshop, and this is their regular modeling paste, not the light and fluffy, it is very easy and none of it seeped underneath the stencil. Now I'm trying to make this as smooth as possible without really pressing down. Now most of this video I've just sped up to double time. But I am taking my time with this, and I'm just pulling it down. And my card is almost parallel to the cradled wood board. Then I go back and I'm just trying to get rid of those ridges. But because this is supposed to look like a mosaic, like there's grout and glass bits and different things, it won't matter so much if there's a little bit of inconsistency. In fact, I think that texture is going to really add to it. So here I'm just trying to get rid of some of the bigger ridges. But I'm being careful not to press down, because I found that more than anything makes the modeling paste squish under. So once I have it all done and leveled off how I like it, I'm just removing the stencil. Now I do put this off to the side, and I let it dry for several hours before I come back, which is almost torturous for me. Before you move on, you need to clean your stencil. But there's a lot of modeling paste on there, and what I thought I would do is I'm just grabbing my quick fired quote journal, which has some colored pages in it that are at the ready, and I'm pulling out something that's more solid color, and I'm just grabbing the modeling paste from the sides and I'm just putting it through the stencil to just get the dragonfly on this dark blue background. Because I'm thinking, you know, I really love dragonflies, and this month I'm doing the theme of change in my quickfire quote journal, and dragonflies are all about transformation and change. So there we have it. Now, because I grabbed the navy sheet, at this point I remind myself that I really wanted to put blue, a dark blue, underneath, not black. And I started keeping the black, and then I decided, you know what, I'm just going to gesso over the entire thing with white gesso and paint it blue. I'm going to go with what I want. So I'm adding this step. But if you were to start from scratch, just have the white gesso and apply the modeling paste, white modeling paste through it, and then paint it the navy blue. Sometimes I just have too many ideas in my head. Now here's a trick that I learned. If you take dioxazine purple and phthalo green and you mix them together, you get an absolutely gorgeous, deep, dark, indigo navy color. Who knew? I absolutely love this color. This is my favorite new blending tip. So now I'm just going to paint over the modeling paste and the background. So the grout of this art is going to be navy. Now you can do it black, you can do it any color you want. And I'm just taking the brush, and I do switch to a bigger brush and working it in. And the advantage of doing it this way is the sides of the modeling paste will now be navy, not white. So they're going to fade a bit more. They're not going to stand out, because if you do the modeling paste afterwards, the sides, you might have to deal with that if you don't really like that look. So this avoids that problem. So I'm absolutely loving my blue background, and I'm putting the stencil back on. And because there's modeling paste on there, it pretty much stays in place. But I'm taping it down anyways. Now I'm taking white gesso and a makeup sponge, and I'm just applying it in layers throughout the whole thing. And the gesso is only going on the places that have the modeling paste. So the grout lines will be blue, and everything else is now going to be gessoed white. And I want it white because I'm going to be applying color to all these raised areas. And I didn't think that the colors would be true if I went on top of the navy. So hopefully this gives you a couple ideas of some different things that you can do with your stencils. And putting the stencil back on it to apply paint is a really cool trick. So there we have it all gessoed up, and I'm just putting the stencil back, and I'm getting some gold paint, and I've decided what colors I want to do. Now, when I start, I'm thinking I want the dragonfly to be shimmery, and I want the gold part to be shimmery, and I thought everything else was going to be just regular colors. Now the gold is fairly translucent, so I do end up adding a couple layers, and I'm kind of dry brushing. I'm being careful not to put too much paint on my brush, have a really wet brush, because I don't want the paint to go underneath the stencil. And again, I'm building it up. If I have to go over it more than one time, then that's what I'll do, as opposed to rushing this process and ending up with it going under the stencil. Now you can paint those things, the high areas, without the stencil back on here. But I was feeling a little bit lazy and I thought, you know what? I'm going to use the stencil to guide me. I'm going to make this easy for myself. So I just keep working around and applying the gold. And I do go back, I think I do 3 layers, but I don't show you all those layers. There's lots of this video. It's highly repetitive. There's, you know, once you get the trick of putting the stencil back on to apply the paint, there's a lot of me just adding the different colors and building up the layers to the shades and the depth, you know, till I get what I like. When you're applying the paint and you want to add another layer to make it darker, make sure it dries in between. But don't put the heat tool on top of the stencil. The stencil is plastic, so you would have to take off the stencil or just let it dry, give it time. So you can see how much brighter the gold is after that second or third layer. So then I decide I'm going to do some quinacridone magenta. And I start putting it on and I'm peeking under, and it's more vivid than what I have in my head. So I add a little bit of white. Now the white also helps make the paint more opaque. And I like having some variations here where some of the pink is darker and some of it's lighter, so I kind of keep going with that. And I keep peeking because that's just my own insecurities of, is this looking the way I want it to look? And I also want to show you what's happening here. I really like where there's variations in that pink color. And I think this is a 1/2 inch brush, flat brush, which is the perfect width for what I'm doing. And then there's kind of a swirl on the top and the bottom, and I'm adding the pink to that as well. This would also have looked good with just the navy and then everything on top of it being gold. The navy, the gold and the blue would look spectacular together. I have loved this stencil since the very first time I've seen it, and I'm just so thrilled to have it now in my studio to be able to create this. And you've already seen I've taken just the dragonfly, and that's going to be in my quick fire journal. You can also use the different sections of this to get different textures as well, and you've seen me doing that with the stencils. So when you lift up the stencil, make sure it goes down to the correct point. So now I'm using bright aqua, and I'm just getting it in this part. Now this color, you know, from the beginning, I wasn't happy with the color. It just, I don't know if it should be darker, add more colors in it. I do change it and I'm happier later on. But how it ended up, as much as I like it, isn't exactly what's in my head. So this whole project, not including the drying time for the modeling paste, probably took about 2 hours. 1.5 to 2 hours. I just keep adding, and sometimes you just keep going. And hope that when everything goes together, it's going to go together well. I believe I added another coat of gesso in the center part to make it bright white, because I'm thinking of leaving it white. So this is cobalt blue metallic. It's Artist Loft. It's a luscious color. And I wanted the dragonfly to be all shimmery in here. This is a nice deep teal color. I don't, when I look at this, I don't think cobalt blue at all. I think more teal or in the turquoise family. But I like the depth there, the darkness, and it really makes that dragonfly stand out. Now I'm using the PBO iridescent paint, and this is blue-green, and I'm adding that on top of the bright aqua. And this turns it a little bit more blue, and I'm happier with that. It's a very subtle difference, but it's a little more muted, I think. Plus, it has some spectacular shimmer. Those PBO iridescent paints are amazing. And in the video, you can't get the full appreciation for the shimmer that ends up being on this piece. But when it's hanging on the wall, it just really glows. It's quite amazing. But you can always add iridescent medium to whatever color paint you're having and make all of your things, all of your colors metallic or iridescent. So you can get that shimmer. And I'll put a link to the video where I show how to make your paints metallic and iridescent. So I keep looking and adjusting, looking and adjusting. Need it to be a little bit darker gold, so I'm adding yet one more layer. And there was lots of tweaking, and not all of that was caught on the in the video. I'm thinking maybe the round circle parts could be the same color as the dragonfly. I think that would look quite nice as well, but I don't want to lose the dragonfly, so now I'm taking light blue permanent and mixing it with the Crafters Workshop Shimmery Goodness, which is kind of an opal finish to it, and will make any color kind of iridescent. And instead of leaving it the stark white in the middle, I'm putting ever so slight amount of blue there. There's just it's a very, very light blue. But since everything else is now shimmery, I needed this part to be shimmery as well. And I'm happy with just tinting it with that light blue permanent. I was thinking I would put some purple in there, but it just didn't happen. But you can take this stencil and play around with different color combos till you found one that you really, really love. Now, since this is cradled wood, the edge is about 1.5 inches wide. So I grabbed this stencil from the Crafter's Workshop. It's a Balzer design, script words, TCW 832, and I am masking off the word believe. And I'm going to stencil that all the way around. There you can kind of see some of the shimmer there. So I put it in the center, and then on the two sides, and just the word believe. I may go back and take my fine line bottle and outline this, or a micron pen to make it stand out more, or just leave it as it is. So here's a close-up of the project. I'm going to lift it up a little bit. Hopefully you can see some of that shimmer that's there. This was a fun project to make. I hope you give it a try. Check the description box for links to any products. Here are some close-ups. Look at that lovely shimmer. Thanks so much for watching. Leave me a comment. Like my video. Share it with your creative friends.